So I've been thinking a few things about sex. And one of the things I'm thinking about is why is sex so pleasurable? Why did nature make sex a pleasurable activity, an exciting activity, so that men would want to have sex to achieve that pleasure? I was wondering, would the human race not survive if sex was only an activity to lead to the production of a child? If sex had no pleasure associated with it, if it was just a functional activity that was done just to enable the production of a child, and it didn't have any pleasure associated with it. So I get thinking, why did nature make sex so exciting and make sex an activity that men wanted to pursue? And what I'm thinking is that nature wants babies to be produced. And so nature has made sex a very pleasurable activity so that men would pursue the pleasure and thereby have children, even if that wasn't the reason they had sex. So it seems as if sex is so pleasurable because nature wants men to pursue sex and then have children, even if they didn't intend to have children by having sex, but it would happen anyway. So I was wondering if the human race would not survive if sex was just an activity to lead to ejaculation and to lead to children. I'm wondering if the human race would not survive. So did nature make sex so pleasurable to ensure that babies would be produced? So I'm wondering, in other words, how many babies that are created were intended to be created, and how many were incidental as a result of sex, but they were not intended. So I think it's interesting to wonder how many children were intended and how many were just a result of sex, but not intended. So I think that's interesting. So I'm thinking that sex could be just a functional activity with no pleasure associated with it. If sex was just functional, would the human race die out? Is sex just a technique to force men to have sex and force the production of children because men want to pursue the pleasure of sex? So I think it's interesting to wonder why sex is so pleasurable, why sex isn't just functional, because when it comes down to it, sex doesn't need to be a pleasure. It can be just functional. But nature has made sex a pleasure for men. So men pursue the pleasure and then get children whether they wanted children or not. So I think that's interesting. So I'm still thinking on it.